This is Land of Havilah, 2 Kings 20. In the last chapter, quote, Yahweh's angel went out and struck 185,000 in the camp of the Assyrians. When the men arose early in the morning, behold, these were all dead bodies. 2 Kings 19:35. Thus Sennacherib withdrew and took with him whatever was left of his army. Right around that time, or just after, Hezekiah faced another challenge. Verse 1. In those days Hezekiah was sick and dying. Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos, came to him and said to him, Yahweh says, set your house in order, for you will die and not live. Comment, Isaiah came to Hezekiah's house and told him he would die. Hezekiah's response to the bad news, verse 2. Then he turned his face to the wall and prayed to Yahweh, saying, Remember now, Yahweh, I beg you, how I have walked before you in truth and with a perfect heart, and have done that which is good in your sight. And Hezekiah wept bitterly. Comment, Hezekiah's prayer at the time of his illness is recorded in Isaiah chapter 38. He said to Yahweh, quote, You have cast all my sins behind your back, Isaiah 38:17. That was a very New Testament concept. Hezekiah knew he was a sinner, saved by grace. He was generally faithful and did exceedingly well in regard to Yahweh, better than any king before or after, 2 Kings 18:5. But still he knew he was a sinner. So when he said in verse 3 that his heart was perfect, he didn't mean it the way it sounded. The moment Isaiah left his house, Hezekiah went into mourning and prayer. Isaiah was still walking home when, verse 4, Before Isaiah had gone out into the middle part of the city, Yahweh's word came to him, saying, Turn back and tell Hezekiah, the prince of my people, Yahweh, the God of David, your father, says, I have heard your prayer. I have seen your tears. Behold, I will heal you. On the third day you will go up to Yahweh's house. I will add to your days 15 years. I will deliver you and this city out of the hand of the king of Assyria. I will defend this city for my own sake and for my servant David's sake. Comment, Yahweh responded that fast before Isaiah could get home. Day after tomorrow, Hezekiah will be well enough to go to the temple, and he'll live another 15 years. Secondly, Yahweh will defend Jerusalem from the Assyrians and all others for the rest of Hezekiah's life. Psalm 102:2, quote, Don't hide your face from me in the day of my distress. Turn your ear to me. Answer me quickly when I call. End quote. And Proverbs 15:29, quote, Yahweh is far from the wicked, but he hears the prayer of the righteous. End quote. In the last chapter, Yahweh had a word for Sennacherib, but he didn't even bother to give it to him. But he was happy to give Hezekiah a response immediately. Verse 7. Isaiah said, Take a cake of figs. They took and laid it on the boil, and he recovered. Hezekiah said to Isaiah, What will be the sign that Yahweh will heal me, and that I will go up to Yahweh's house the third day? Comment, Hezekiah is going to get a sign day after tomorrow. The sign will be he's already starting to recover well enough to go to Yahweh's house. But he wants a sign even more quickly. Coming up, Yahweh took no offense. Verse 9. Isaiah said, This will be the sign to you from Yahweh, that Yahweh will do the thing that he has spoken. Should the shadow go forward 10 steps or go back 10 steps? Hezekiah answered, It is a light thing for the shadow to go forward 10 steps. No, but let the shadow return backward 10 steps. Isaiah the prophet cried to Yahweh, and he brought the shadow 10 steps backward, by which it had gone down on the sundial of Ahaz. Comment, that was a tremendous favor when he couldn't even wait 2 days to be granted a sign immediately, and such a magnificent sign that the shadow could go backwards. So Hezekiah will recover, and the next 15 years are guaranteed that there will be life and peace. Quote, My son, don't forget my teaching, for length of days and years of life and peace they will add to you. Proverbs 3:1. Hezekiah had guaranteed life and peace, and so do we. Romans 8:6, quote, For the mind of the flesh is death, but the mind of the Spirit is life and peace. End quote. It's possible that we could die young, or that we might suffer through some type of war or difficult situation, but we'll be unshakable, and we have eternal life. When death comes, it will only release us to a greater life and peace. Coming up, Hezekiah's victory over the Assyrians was good news for other nations as well, as it says in 2 Chronicles 32:23, When news of the victory spread, quote, many brought gifts to Yahweh, to Jerusalem, and precious things to Hezekiah, king of Judah, so that he was exalted in the sight of all the nations from then on, end quote. So there was a celebratory atmosphere among the nations, and Yahweh and Hezekiah were international heroes. Verse 12. At that time Berodach Baladan, the son of Baladan, king of Babylon, sent letters and a present to Hezekiah, for he had heard that Hezekiah had been sick. Comment, it's Berodach Baladan, or as Isaiah 39:1 calls him, Merodach Baladan. He's a figure in non-biblical history as well, king of Babylon, which was on the far side of Nineveh. Merodach Baladan and his kingdom had long multi-generational wars with Assyria, and he's delighted that Hezekiah defeated them. Certainly he wished he could go to Judah in person and congratulate Hezekiah on his victory and recovery, but he did the next best thing by sending some ambassadors with letters of congratulations and a present. Hezekiah got a little carried away because, verse 13, Hezekiah listened to them and showed them all the storehouse of his precious things, the silver, the gold, the spices, and the precious oil, and the house of his armor, and all that was found in his treasures. There was nothing in his house or in all his dominion that Hezekiah didn't show them. Comment, according to 2 Chronicles 32:27, quote, Hezekiah had exceedingly much riches and honor. He provided himself with treasuries for silver, for gold, for precious stones, for spices, for shields, for all kinds of valuable vessels, also storehouses for the increase of grain, new wine and oil, and stalls for all kinds of animals, and flocks in folds. Moreover, he provided for himself cities and possessions of flocks and herds in abundance, for God had given him abundant possessions. End quote. Hezekiah showed the Babylonians all of it. Verse 14. Then Isaiah the prophet came to King Hezekiah and said to him, What did these men say? From where did they come to you? Hezekiah said, They have come from a far country, even from Babylon. He said, What have they seen in your house? Hezekiah said, They have seen all that is in my house. There is nothing among my treasures that I have not shown them. Isaiah said to Hezekiah, Hear Yahweh's word. Behold, the days come that all that is in your house and that which your fathers have laid up in store to this day will be carried to Babylon. Nothing will be left, says Yahweh. They will take away some of your sons who issue from you, whom you will father, and they will be eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon. Then Hezekiah said to Isaiah, Yahweh's word which you have spoken is good. He said, moreover, Isn't it so if peace and truth will be in my days? Comment, the ambassadors were from Babylon. Eventually Babylon will defeat the Assyrians, and they'll become the next big empire. Then the day will come, sometime after Hezekiah passes away, that the Babylonians will invade Judah and take everything he accumulated. They'll also take some of his descendants and make them eunuchs for service to the king of Babylon. In the matter of the ambassadors, 2 Chronicles 32:31 says, quote, God left him to try him, that he might know all that was in his heart, end quote. Hezekiah proved that pride was in his heart, 2 Chronicles 32:25. But in the next verse, he, quote, humbled himself so that Yahweh's wrath didn't come on them in the days of Hezekiah, end quote. Hezekiah would have been better off with modesty rather than offending Yahweh with his pride and making the Babylonians salivate over what he had. There's a definite benefit in terminal illness. It precludes the possibility that we'll live on to give offense. Verse 20. Now the rest of the acts of Hezekiah and all his might, and how he made the pool and the conduit and brought water into the city, aren't they written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? Hezekiah slept with his fathers, and Manasseh his son reigned in his place. Comment, God bless Hezekiah. He wasn't perfect, but he did a really good job. By the way, during Hezekiah's reign, the prophet Nahum wrote his 3-chapter book, which predicted the coming victory of Babylon over Assyria, including the destruction of Nineveh. 2 Kings 21 is next at landofhavilah.net, 2 Kings 21. This is the map of 2 Kings 20. This is Babylon in Mesopotamia. On a straight line between Babylon and Judah, there is the vast Arabian desert. so the only practical route from Babylon to Judah was up the Euphrates River to the watered areas of the Mediterranean coast, then south. 2 Kings 21 is next.